The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by Sci-Fi Donuts, Ray's Movers and Storage, Inc.,
Welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show, coming to you from Wildrose Brewing in Griffith, Indiana. Today, actually, welcome back, Kelly, to the Wednesday night show. She's been busy with her rehearsal, and actually, you had the debut night of the Cemetery Club.
Opening weekend was last weekend, and closing weekend is this weekend.
Yeah,
very short run at Marion.
She's been kind of busy, but we've had Michael filling in for her, which we got to thank Michael Puente again for filling in.
Thank you, Michael.
So, but as you know, there's no substitute for Kelly. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. So we'd like to welcome today our guest, Jon Becker, who is a senior lecturer at the Department of Mathematics at IU Northwest. And he's also an author of a book called Flunked Out Professor, 6 Steps for Turning Your Big Failure into Bigger Success. So welcome to our show, Jon.
And Jon.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Callie. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on. I'd like to talk to you a bit about your background and what brought you here and what brought you to write this book.
Well, interestingly enough, I'm a local region guy. Went to Crown Point High School, class of '82. Go Bulldogs. Go Bulldogs. There you go. And at the age of 19, I had gone to college for about a year and a half. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, so I wasn't really going to class too much. And the university politely invited me to stop attending classes. That's my nice way of saying I got kicked out of college. So after about a year and a half of delivering pizzas and playing video games, my girlfriend told me that she didn't want to marry a bum, and that I better figure out what I was going to do with my life, or she was going to find someone else to live her life with. So I ended up going back to college, graduating from IU Northwest, becoming a teacher, and now I am a teacher at IU Northwest, the university that kicked me out. So I think that's kind of an interesting story. And so I wrote the book.
Totally full circle.
It's completely full circle. And I wrote the book to encourage other people who experience big failure that failure doesn't have to define us. And I implemented the steps that I use to achieve success into the book. And I'm hoping that it'll help other people who are feeling like failures so that they can implement some of those steps and turn their situation around.
And you use the word situation, so this isn't necessarily directed at students per se.
Not at all. I do relate my own story as a college student, but this book is written for anybody who's experienced failure, which is pretty much all of us.
Oh, yeah.
We've all experienced some kind of failure. And I take the reader through the 6 steps that I use to turn that failure into success. And it can be used by anybody in any situation when they're trying to overcome a failure that they feel like defines them. Because it really doesn't. We might experience failure, but that doesn't mean that we are failures as individuals.
Right. So I was reading through some of your biography, and you talked about you were experiencing some physical problems. You gained a large amount of weight, and so you had that working against you, which was that a lot of, by going to school, was that a lot of what you put on through pizza and beer?
Some, as a freshman, well, for me it was about the freshman 80, but it was also a matter of getting married. That girlfriend who told me that I better get my life together, we ended up getting married, and we've been together for 32 years, and now I have 8 kids. But I think any guy will tell you that often they'll gain weight after they first get married. And so I ended up gaining about 80 pounds after high school. I was well over 350 pounds, just really, really miserable. And it seemed like losing 140 or 150 pounds was such a huge task that I couldn't accomplish it. But I broke it down into bite-sized steps, what I call milestones, and I just attacked it a little bit at a time. And I've now lost over 100 pounds in the last 12 to 15 years.
Well, you look great.
Thank you. Thank you. I look much better than I did 15 years ago.
Because not to hark on the weight,
No,
but it says in the notes that the nurse put down approximately 350 plus.
Yes.
Because the scale did not go any higher.
That's right. That was back when we had the sliders on the scale. We didn't have digital scales.
Right.
And it only went up to 350. And when I stepped on the scale, it just kind of clanked down, and it wouldn't balance out. So she just put 350 plus. That was the low point in my weight loss experience.
So you overcoming this, gaining all this weight and losing it. Are you supposing a lot of the steps that you take to lose the weight, to gain a lot of the achievements by doing that, you were able to carry over into your academic career?
Absolutely. The first step in my book is that you have to face your circumstances. And the second step is to take responsibility. And those sound a lot alike. But the reality is that when you face your circumstances, you can say, I'm in this situation, I weigh 360 pounds, and it's someone else's fault. It's my wife because she's a good cook, or it's, well, the reality is there's no one to blame but yourself. And that's step two, which is facing responsibility, which I had to do. I had to take responsibility, not face responsibility. I had to take responsibility and say, I'm the one who got in this situation. It's no one else's fault. I have to take the responsibility to get this fixed. And, the doctors were telling me that I needed to lose weight. My wife was concerned, but until you face your circumstances and own it, take that responsibility, you're not going to fix the situation. It has to be done by you.
It's like shooting in the dark if you approach it without, identifying what the problem is and what the cause of the problem is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I knew what the problem was. I knew what I needed to do. I have been overweight my entire life and struggled with that. And so I knew what I had to do. It was just a matter of taking responsibility and then making a plan, casting a vision for what I could look like if I would start losing this weight.
And then the same thing for going back to college.
Absolutely.
I know my freshman year, I went to a school I didn't really want to go to, but I was forced to go to. I was taking courses that I really didn't want to take to, but I, had to take them, and I didn't do well.
Well, I didn't do well for the same reason. I went to class, I majored in pre-med because I thought doctors made a lot of money. I had no desire to be a doctor, I just had a desire to make money.
Sure.
And so after the first 2 weeks in a biology class that I didn't understand, I naturally started reverting to old habits like skipping classes and not doing my homework and things like that, which is why I ultimately got kicked out of college.
So let's take this template that you learned about, and a lot of this is directed at students, but yet again, a lot of it's in general in life. How can you apply what you learned through overcoming the weight, and losing the weight by going in checks, identifying the problem? How would you suggest changing that over or turning it over and applying it to someone's academic career?
Well, for anyone in an academic situation, the first thing I would encourage them, especially if they're new students, is that they don't have to know what they're going to be doing when they're 38 years old when they enroll in college at the age of 18. And I didn't know that when I went to college. I thought I had to declare a major when I went in, and I had to follow this path, and that was part of what led to my downfall. But now that I've been teaching at the university for over 25 years, and I've been an academic advisor, I recognize that students don't have to declare a major when they first go into college, because a lot of the courses they take when they're freshmen will fit into any discipline. So, for example, Callie, I know that you're in a show, the Cemetery Club, is that right?
Right.
So if somebody enjoyed being in theater, I was in theater when I was in high school. If somebody enjoyed theater, they could take a theater class in college. And maybe they'll like it and want to major in theater. Maybe they won't and they want to major in something else. But the theater course that they took when they were in college will apply even if they change change their major to something like social work. It will fit, those 3 credits will fit into the degree over here that students are aware that course was not a lost cause. It wasn't a waste of time. In fact, it was a success because they learned that they don't like theater. So they got the victory of understanding that they don't need to major in theater because they didn't like it, but they have the course that can plug into a different degree. And so that's huge, but so many students will come in as freshmen and they'll be so convinced that they have to declare a major, and they'll take courses that they're not sure they're going to like, and when they experience failure early on, like I did when I was 19 years old, they will label themselves as a failure, and that negative self-talk is going to just steamroll into feeling like a failure in other areas.
So, getting into college, say using that example, what would you say would be the second challenge that a student would have to face when they get into college?
The second challenge, I think, is that when a student comes into college, they often feel intimidated by their professors, which I understand because I felt the same way. But now that I'm on the other side of the desk, I want my students to get to know me. I want my students to know that I care about their success. I want them to be successful. I'm not standing up there trying to do everything I can to help them get a bad grade. I want them to experience success so they can have a good experience, that they can earn a good grade, and they can move on into whatever their major they end up declaring.
Now, do you share with your students the fact that, hey, when I started out, I wasn't the perfect student either?
I absolutely
and
do.
this is, look at me now.
Yes.
This is what can happen in your life.
I absolutely do. In fact, I have a copy of my college transcript, and I will show my classes the first 3 semesters and my GPA of 1.4, and then I will show them the gap in my transcript of a year and a half before I come back, and I'll show them my transcript from when I return to the end in my 3.0 plus GPA, and I'll explain to them that I've been where you are.
Yeah.
I have experienced failure. That doesn't mean I am a failure, but we all experience failure.
That's how you learn.
It is how you learn. And sometimes I get frustrated. I used to coach softball, and I get frustrated when we give every single student, every single player, a participation trophy because they don't learn that failure is part of life, and they don't learn how to react to it. So I'm starting to preach a little bit here. I apologize
No,
for that.
that's okay. I'm totally right there. Not everybody is a winner. I mean, you're all winners in your own way, but not everybody can win the baseball game. Not everybody can win the football game.
And just because we experience failure doesn't mean we are a failure. I like to tell my students that your life is not a snapshot. It's a film, it's a movie. And if you just take a picture of your lowest moment and you look at that and determine that this is who I am, you're never going to get out of that rut. You have to understand that our life ebbs and flows. We have successes and we have failures. And ultimately, our life is not about what we are in a given moment at a given time.
And do you suppose that a lot of maybe like what you stated, you went to school wanting to become a doctor because you thought that was going to bring in the big bucks, but you really probably didn't have a passion for that. I mean, the passion was for dollars driven. How often do you think that someone goes into starting their academic career and they really haven't thought about what they're passionate about and what they love doing, and that becomes a problem in itself?
I think that happens a lot. One of the things that I like to do when I advise a student is to ask them about their high school experience. I like to ask them what courses they took in high school, what courses they liked in high school, what extracurricular activities they liked in high school, and what things didn't they like in high school. Because I want to help them create a schedule for their first semester that is going to have some positive experiences in it. Now, every student is going to have to take a composition class to learn how to write well. And if a student didn't like English in high school, unfortunately, that's something they're going to have to take anyway. But I try and find other courses, other disciplines, other extracurricular activities that they did like in high school so that we can help them find a happy balance between the courses they're not excited about and the courses that they do enjoy so that they can have a positive first semester experience, because keeping students from the first semester to the second semester is a challenge. It really is.
Like, for instance, if someone is not extremely good at math, direct them towards another area. And that's one thing I wanted to ask you about, is what is, as someone who teaches at the higher ed level, what, looking back at high school, do you feel that high schools are doing a good job preparing students for higher ed?
I do. I haven't been in a high school setting for a number of years. I taught for 8 years in Gary before I moved to the university, and I do feel like the area schools are doing a pretty good job of connecting with colleges and universities to help them understand the flow, the transition, but I don't know how well they're helping the students understand the transition. And so there are more and more bridge programs, or what we call them, summer programs that students can take that will help transition them better into college. We're also implementing more freshman orientation type courses that can help them understand the difference between high school and college. And I think those things are helping, but a lot of students feel like they don't need those courses because it's just going to be an extension of high school, and that is a huge misunderstanding on the part of the students.
Well, number one, the scheduling is different.
Very different.
And, you know, that they have now, and that's some things I've observed. Students that I've talked to recently said they've gone through, you know, having these 55-minute classes in high school to going to blocks in college, and they didn't know how to deal with that. And so that is one thing. I know a lot of schools have looked at block scheduling to where it more simulates what they would have when they go into college.
That's true.
Do you run into students that have difficulty with the schedule?
I do. Some of the high schools that do block scheduling do better prepare students for coming in to college, because a typical college course will meet only 2 or 3 times a week for an hour and a half or thereabouts. And students who have had that experience in high school are better accustomed to it. I think one of the bigger challenges is that students who come into college don't understand that the level of homework and the level of the rigor and the assignments that they're going to get are probably 50 to 75% more complex than they were in high school, and the professor's not going to go back and reteach stuff in the next class. It becomes important for the students to understand that the professors have office hours, and they need to go see the professors during those office hours to get their questions answered, because the professor's going to move on in the next class. And students get intimidated about doing that, especially in their freshman year, and so they find themselves weeks behind because they haven't been going to the professor. And then after their first test, when they don't do so well, then they're even more intimidated to go talk to the professor because their grades aren't up to what they want them to be. So it perpetuates itself.
And so you do see kids dropping out. I mean, they get so intimidated by the college environment, or they didn't pick something that they were passionate about, and so they spin their wheels and they drop out. But
yes,
you look at, oh gosh, it's so difficult not to get a good job without at least a bachelor's degree. And now it seems like things have shifted. That back in my day, once you got a bachelor's degree, you're doing pretty good. Now it's master's degree is, gosh, you almost need a master's degree sometime to earn that. And this is not always applied throughout, but what do you have to say for people who maybe they hit the brick wall and they fall off the rail and they have to get back in? What would you recommend?
Well, the first thing that I want to stress is that college is not for everyone, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some of my dearest, closest friends are master carpenters, they're master welders, they're master plumbers, and they're making more money than I do in the trades, and there is nothing wrong with that. They can do something I cannot do. There is no shame in finding that college is not for you. And I might be shooting myself in the foot when I say that, because our goal is to get and keep students, but the reality is I want to get and keep the right students. I don't want to keep students in college who college is not for them. So the first thing I would say is there is no shame in finding that college is not for you. But if college is something that you want, I think the most important thing that any student can do when they come in is introduce themselves to the professor on the very first day by name with a strong handshake. Every time I have a student do that, I never forget their name. I'm more focused when they're missing from class. They're more likely to come and talk to me and get help. It's making that connection with the professor of each of your classes that is going to help you have success in college. So that's what I would really encourage students to do if they want to succeed in college. Know their professors, go to their professors for help, and develop that relationship.
Now, what do you say to a kid who really wants to go to college and is very passionate about a field that their parents think is a waste of time or not the right thing for them, and they're not going to pay for you to go to school or to the schools you want to go to and to take the classes you want to take because that's silly, that's not you're not going to make money at that, whatever. How does a child like that, a student, find financial help where they're not going to end up 40 years old and still making payments to, for student loans and be able to go and do something they're passionate about?
Well, that's a great question, and it is very difficult for a student to succeed if they don't have the support that they need at home. One of the things that I would encourage a student who's in that situation goes back to something we talked about a little bit earlier. Let's say that a student wants to major in medicine, for example, and they're genuinely interested, not like I was, but genuinely interested. They can go to school and they can take their general education courses, they can take their English, they can take their math. They're going to have to take some kind of science course for any degree that they take, or they could take a biology or a chemistry class. They wouldn't have to necessarily, I'm not trying to get kids to deceive their parents, but they wouldn't necessarily have to declare a pre-med as a major. They could go in undeclared, undecided, but they can take courses that are going to be needed in that block. And as they demonstrate success in those courses, your parents are probably more likely to say, oh, you know what? Maybe he can be a doctor, or maybe she can go into architecture or something like that, because they're doing well in these fields. And math is a big field for a lot of things. If you can do well in calculus, for example, and demonstrate to your parents, who probably don't know calculus themselves, that you're doing well in it, that's going to probably give them a different perspective. But to further go on with your question, always look for any kind of financial assistance that you can get, whether it's grants or scholarships. There are hundreds of scholarships that go unclaimed every year. Also, I encourage students to work their way through college and take out as few loans as possible. And if they have to take out loans, take out what are called subsidized loans. Those are subsidized by the government so that the interest does not start accruing on them until 6 months after you graduate or stop attending college.
And how do you feel about students who they can't afford to go to a regular four-year school to start with, and so they want to take some courses online, like maybe their basic English courses and things like that, but they're going to have to take anyway while they work part-time so that they can save up to maybe finish out their last 2 years at a four-year school?
I think that's an excellent option. In fact, I teach online courses myself, and students can take those online courses and they don't have to fit them into a 9-to-5 schedule, so they can do the work when they're not working. They can do the homework. I teach a class that basically the assignments are due every week on a Tuesday, but they can work on them anytime during the week. Online education is rapidly growing, and there are a lot of really good online courses that you can take. You don't even have to take them all with the same university, but you do need to check the university that you want to graduate from. Ultimately, you need to make sure that the credit hours that you're accumulating will transfer into their program.
So going back a bit, we do have students that are going to struggle one way or another because whether it be just the environmental, the cultural shock, they're going to struggle. what are some of the warning signs that these students would get that they're going to get the poop?
Well, the first thing that students are going to understand is that if their GPA falls below a 2.0, they're going to be put on what's called academic probation. Now, 2.0 is a C. So if a student's average falls below a C, they're going to get a letter that tells them you are on the first semester of academic probation. If you don't show satisfactory academic progress in the next semester, your course load will be reviewed again and you may be continued on probation. Now, if you fall well below a C, a 2.0, but the next semester you get a B and a C and your GPA moves up a little bit, that's considered academic progress. And since you're moving in a positive direction, you won't be put on that second semester normal. Basically, after 2 semesters where you're not making any academic progress, it's very likely that the university is going to dismiss you. But you will have received multiple contacts from advisors as well as letters, registered letters from the university indicating to you that this is coming. When I was kicked out of college, getting the letter in the mail was painful, but it was not a surprise. I knew it was coming.
Yeah. You might have pretended it was a surprise to your parents. I had no idea.
No, I told my parents I wasn't doing so well. I kind of prepared them for the blow. So.
Well, then let's talk about some of the things you discuss in the book. Specifically, what are the 6 steps to overcome failure that you outline in your book?
Well, as I said earlier, the first thing is that you have to face your circumstances. I had a girlfriend. We had been dating for a couple of years. We were very serious. We were talking about marriage. And she told me, and this is exactly what she said, I don't care what you do with your life, but you better do something because I don't want to marry a bum. She called me a bum, and I go into that in the book.
I get called several things daily. Bum is minor.
Yeah, we all get that. Well, I have 8
Right,
kids,
Kelly?
so.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sitting in the middle. Anyway, so I had to take what she said, and I had to say, okay, I am delivering pizzas for a living and living in my parents' basement, and the girl that I love is telling me I better do something about this or she's going to leave. I had to look in the mirror and say, okay, this is where you are. These are your circumstances. What are you going to do about it? And then the second thing I had to do is I had to take responsibility. I got mad when she said that. I was like, who does she think she is? That lasted for about a minute because I knew it was my fault. And I had to take responsibility. So the third step then is to cast a vision for what your future could look like. Now for me, my future did not look like being a doctor. I knew that when I went to college, but I persisted and tried to do it anyway. I had been told by my high school guidance counselor at Crown Point High School that I would be an excellent high school math or science teacher, and I thought he was silly. When I went back and I looked at what he said and realized how much I loved teaching and how good I was at math, it was a natural fit for me. I could see myself. I could cast a vision for what it looked like to help students, to teach in a classroom. Once I did that, I had to take a step. That's the fourth step, is to take the first step. Now that's interesting, but the first 3 steps are really kind of emotional or mental steps that you have to take. Eventually, you have to take a concrete first step. For me, that was re-enrolling in college, retaking a couple of courses that I had failed to fix my GPA. So that was my first step. After I take that first step, I'm getting them mixed up a little bit. Yeah, after I take that first step, you have to kind of watch where you're going. When you have a vision for where you want to go and you're headed down that road, sometimes you can tend to drift. So you have to make little course corrections along the way. You might need to drop a class that you're not doing well in so you can focus on other classes. So you have to make those course corrections along the way so that you can stay on target. And then the 6th step is to celebrate milestones along the way. For example, when I got readmitted to college, that was a huge milestone. My girlfriend and I celebrated. When I graduated from college, we celebrated that milestone. When I got a teaching job, we really celebrated that milestone. When I got hired at the university, another milestone along the way. We forget to celebrate the little steps along the way when we get so focused on the end of the tunnel that we don't pay attention to where we are in the tunnel. And I think that's really important. That really came into play when I was losing weight. You know, I weighed like 360 pounds. There was no way I was going to get down to 220 in one shot. So I set a goal of getting to 300, and then to 280, and then to 260, and I celebrated along the way. Not with cake and pie. Did not celebrate with cake and ice cream or anything like that.
Or beer.
And pizza. I did not celebrate that way.
Yeah. So it's really a series of self-assessment, looking at what you're doing and self-reflection.
Absolutely. And it has to be intentional. You're not just going to drift into success. You can drift into failure and chaos, but you have to have a plan and
you have to live your life with intention.
Intentionality. That's exactly right, Callie. You have to live with intentionality.
And integrity. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you're only as good as your word.
Yep. It's about character. It really is about character.
Now, if somebody wanted to get this book so that they can turn their life around and find out how to get to where they want to get and to understand that they're not failures, how do they do that?
Well, it is available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. But if you would like a signed copy, you can just go to www.theflunkedoutprofessor.com. That's my direct website, and you can order it there. And I will personalize the book and sign it and mail it right out to you.
That's fabulous.
Now, writing the book, is that something you like doing? Is that after you started?
You know, it's funny. I learned that the first thing people ask you after your first book is published, the first question is, so what's your second book going to be about? I don't even get to enjoy the writing process. I did enjoy writing it. In the middle of writing the book, and I talk about this in the book, I got Lyme disease. I was bitten by I was bitten by a deer tick while I was mowing my lawn. And a year ago at this time, I got very, very sick. I actually lost a lot of weight, which I don't recommend as a diet plan. But I had to put the book aside for about 4 months because I was so sick that I couldn't finish the manuscript. And I almost gave up on the book, and then in about September or October, my wife was asking me what my thoughts were, and I'm like, I don't know if I can get it done. And I decided to apply the 6 steps to my situation. I had to face the circumstances that I had Lyme disease, my life was different now, and I had to take responsibility of saying, okay, no one's going to finish this book except me, I have to do it. Long story short, from about September to November, I forced myself ahead to finish the manuscript, sent it out for editing, got the cover design done, and it all came together right around Christmas time. But it was hard. The last push to get it done was very difficult because of being sick during that time.
But what did you do to celebrate when you got it done?
When I opened this book, the box that this book came in, I cried.
There you go.
I'm not ashamed to admit that I cried. It was a huge victory. If I could help just one person, that's what the book was written for, and I've already had a number of people come to me and say, you know, I found your book and it's just amazing. I even had some of my students this semester who bought it online and brought it in for me to sign. That was fun. And so I don't know if they were shooting for extra credit or not, but finishing the book, the celebration is what I'm doing now. I get to meet with fine people like you and talk about the book. I've got a couple of speaking opportunities coming up, and I can just share my story and help people, especially students, but anyone who is struggling with failure, to recognize that they can overcome that failure and succeed.
I wish that had been around for me. I do.
You know, a lot of authors I've talked to, they view their product, the book, as a culmination of their experiences up to that point, and they celebrate it, and the fact that you came out with something to help other people through what you went through is it speaks for itself. So, we look for. I'm going to definitely get this and read through it, because there's been times in my life where I look for getting out of problems I was suffering at the time, and I was not the best student, as my parents, if they were still alive today, tell you, because they got one of those letters that you got.
Yep.
Boy, did I get pulled in the woodshed real quick.
People need to understand it's not uncommon. Academic failure is not something rare. If you find yourself in that situation, you are not the first person to experience it. You won't be the last. It doesn't define who you are. It defines a moment in time, and you can get past it.
Absolutely.
But that's what my parents said when they got the book.
I can imagine. It was a different time then.
Yeah, it was a total different time. Yeah. So, boy, we really appreciate you coming on,
Yes,
sharing
we're
your
so
experiences
excited
and
to
telling us
share
about
this.
this book.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll put the information about how they can get the book along with the video, and how they can order it through Amazon and through
BarnesandNoble.com and my website,
And-
www.theflunkedoutprofessor.com.
And
That will get you a personalized copy.
Nice.
That's awesome. So with that, we'll say goodbye to our listeners and viewers.
Thank you, Bill and
And
Callie.
I'd like to thank you for being on our show, and we'll give them information about the book. And we, as always, like to wish you all a safe rest of the week and weekend. And make sure you go out to see Kelly's play.
Come see the
See-
Cemetery Club at Marion Theater in Whiting.
Yeah, she plays a Jewish New Yorker.
Darling, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, with that, we wish you a good night and goodbye for now.
The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by Sci-Fi Donuts, Ray's Movers and Storage, Inc.,